The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. Any references to actual people are wildly inaccurate. It's probably best if you don't listen at all. The Roaring Peacock Podcast. Welcome back to the Roaring Peacock Podcast. This is the New Year special review, and we will be talking about the previous season in part 1 and the Premier League season in part 2. We're also joined by the magnanimous. Is that the right word? It's probably. I'm trying to make a complimentary word. I'm fishing in my.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. I try to be magnanimous every time I lose.
Just fishing in my brain for a big word that sounds good.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Yeah, sounds convincing.
Ross Bell, our man on the post.
Hello.
And Alex, our riot badger.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Go straight into part 2 then. The year continued as Leeds broke their transfer record several times in a slew of transfers that gave us a summer market, the likes of which we haven't seen. 40 million splurged in a day after our big rivals Brighton refused to free Ben White. Brazilian winger came in for chips on deadline day. It was champions versus champions in our first Premier League game in the most watched opening to a season. More happened in the first 30 minutes than every Burnley game ever combined. Wins against Fulham, the Blunts, 2-point Blunts, there you go, and Villa, including a hat-trick from Bam God, saw us dreaming of Europe before coming crashing down to earth with a couple of back-to-back 4-1 batterings. As the world kept going round, there were more ups and downs, beating Newcastle 5-2, before we're told we lost some game on the 20th. Finishing the year by out-Brexiting Burnley's Brexit football and completely demolishing the Baggies, where the year began, and finishing 2020 on 30 scored, 30 conceded. So let's talk first about that summer transfer window. I don't remember Leeds ever going in the market like that.
No, I don't.
Not recently, anyway.
No, you'd be going back to Ridsdale's time, wouldn't you? And of course, the difference back then was that the structure of transfers was slightly different. So I think I'm right in saying that did Ferdinand not arrive in November, and there wasn't quite the congested sections of weeks in which he had to get everything done. But I have to say, quite a lot of us were blindsided by what went on, because we were certainly under the impression to begin with that they would focus quite heavily on what was in the Championship, and they did, like Ollie Watkins a lot. They looked at Benrahma to begin with, but then kind of backed off from that one and never got involved. But the deals that started to come, and obviously they would have taken Ben White if they could have got Ben White, but they'd been looking at Koch. Certainly Orta had been following him for years and years. As the deals started to come in, it did feel like they were pushing things to a different level, especially I felt with Rodrigo as the first one, which was such a marquee signing. Although I do wonder if over time the best value for money recruit of that window is going to be Rafinha, because he looks excellent.
Anglo Nation, that deal.
Well, this is it. I mean, he was quoted, wasn't he, in ESPN Brazil as saying he was narked because Ren had told him that they'd hold out for 60 million euros, and in the end sold him for about 17. And when he came over and you'd had a flick through his CV, you thought that 60 million euros would have been pushing the boat out, to say the least. But I mean, the way he's playing, you would not be selling him now for 17 million quid. Put it that way.
That goal last night was exquisite.
That's terrific. Yeah,
I think they said on Match of the Day too that there's wingers that have cost a lot more than him in the Premier League that are not doing half of the things that he's doing.
Yeah, and you know that Ian Wright is talking about Pepe.
Yeah.
It was
great contrast though. 70 million quid, 72 million quid for Pepe. And I think the thing about Rafinha is it's not just the pace or the left foot or whatever else. He's so good. His touch is so good that he can play in and out of really tight areas, and he seems to be very good at making the right decision. It was quite interesting when he was subbed against Burnley. I thought the 10 minutes or so before he came off was the first period where I'd seen him start to do the wrong thing and start to look for passes that weren't there, or to make the wrong decision in situations where Leeds were under pressure. But in the main, he's so good at reading what's going on round about him. It's not just a case of spending a lot of money on somebody who's lightning quick.
Yeah. He's very unselfish as well. It's like our standard for Brazilians at Leeds United is Roque Jr. and Adrian. So we're expecting Adrian essentially in different boots, but he's always he looks for the pass first before the shot, which is amazing for me for such a skillful player. But that also says a lot about like who he's surrounded with. He trusts who he's playing with. So yeah, it's really good.
Everton, wasn't it? He wanted to pass that ball.
Yeah,
no one was open. No one was in space. Sorry, I'll just whack it in the corner. I'll do that instead.
I think again because he knew that 25 yards out, the percentages for beating Pickford from there were not great. Yeah. But so he does the right thing and he looks for the other ball, but then there's nothing on, so he thinks, "What the hell? Have a hit?" Yeah. And then it goes.
I was reminded of Adrian the other day. I saw a chanced upon a news clip about fishing rights. There was they brought out a fish and it was flapping around everywhere. So. Adrian.
we wrote about him during the lockdown, actually. My colleague at The Athletic, Jack Lang, did a piece with me, and we were... everybody agrees that he's a really talented kid, but I think, bless him, the whole thing at Flamengo with the next Zico and all that, which seems to be a habit over there, didn't half kill him somewhat. And the last we could find of him, he was sort of playing poker down in the south of France, in Monte Carlo.
It's not a bad life, is it?
I think you would say a slightly busted flush in comparison to what was expected of him, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Did he not miss a game because he was midway through a tournament?
He did, yeah. He was at a casino in Monte Carlo, I believe, or certainly on the Swiss-French border, I think.
Nice. Living the dream.
As you do.
He was waiting for the flop. Yeah.
That transfer window. The money we were spending didn't seem real because it had been so long since we spent that. But we just broke the record 2 or 3 times in a couple of weeks. When we signed Llorente for like 18 million, it was just another one of those players that cost that much money now.
We're going cheap. Why are we only spending 18?
Yeah. Did we ever seriously make any moves for like Ollie Watkins or I know obviously Ben White did, but Ben Rama as well?
Yeah, no, there was contact, pretty serious contact with Watkins. It was basically a case of keeping that line of communication open in case it didn't work out with Rodrigo, because they were quite open in saying, they'd have happily done Watkins. I think they just looked at Rodrigo and Watkins, similar price for both, and felt that Rodrigo made sense because of his calibre and everything else. The thing says that they not a huge amount of the £100 million or thereabouts was spent up front. Not a huge amount of that was flowing out of the club there and then. It's all amortised over the length of players' contracts. And I think a lot of the contracts, or the staggering of fees is back weighted, so they'll pay more towards the end of them than they did at the beginning of them. I was told that the most they paid out for a player individually there and then was £3 million. Oh, wow. So, and obviously a lot of it's tied into clauses and add-ons and all the usual stuff. But that's the difference that the Premier League income makes, really. You go from a level where, your biggest signing for years is Bamford at £7 million to a level where your first signing costs nigh on 30, and then on top of that you do, another 3 players at 17, 18, 30 million as it was for Robin Koch and then Mesley as well, and just money flying all over the place. It is a different world.
Yeah, the Mesley one was it seems like a steal. Was it 5 million?
It really does.
It just came out now, which is, he's now ours, plus we spent £5 million on him. And that shocked me, £5 million on a goalkeeper who was 20 years old.
It's strange how it happened as well. Yeah, because he'd been at Lorient and he'd played and they'd been promoted, and then they signed another keeper, which he wasn't happy about. I think he felt that he should have been outright number one, and there shouldn't have been much challenge to that. And he asked to go. Lorient were happy to let him go. The deal was done with Leeds that gave them the option at the end of the season. So really, it was for Leeds to control. And now you look at him first choice under Bielsa in the Premier League, and it seems as if they've cashed out for a pretty small amount of money at £5 million.
That's some confidence. He wants to be the first choice and thinks he should be at 19 years old at a French First Division team.
And assuming in 5 or 6 years' time, we're not talking about somebody who showed a lot of promise and then didn't ultimately deliver. Like £5 million is going to look like a tiny amount of money if he's anything like as good as he seems to be.
How much, in your opinion, do you think the Ben Rama social media video put us off that transfer?
I think it did a bit. Yeah, no. There were people at Leeds who were talking specifically about that, and it came back to the question of, is he going to fit into Bielsa's team? Is he going to fit into the dressing room? Is his attitude going to be right? For what it's worth, I think it probably would have been. He strikes me as a very good player, this Benrahma, and I don't think he'd have been a bad signing. Although again, hugely expensive, and Brentford again doing what they do so well, which is to cash in big time on players that they've picked up, not from nowhere, but players who they've obviously scouted really, really skillfully. But yeah, I think it did make a difference, and they're always very, very conscious of that, because they know that anybody with a big or I suppose more specifically a problematic ego is going to bang heads with Bielsa very, very quickly, and it's not going to work, and it's going to run aground.
Yeah.
Speaking of fashion, I am in my 2020 outfit. It's the New Year special, obviously. So I've got my bow tie, I've got my waistcoat here.
Very good. Impressed.
And I'm in my shorts and my shorts. So the full works.
Yeah, why not? Why not dress up for the occasion? So Primark Christmas jumper for me.
That's beautiful. Other
I need
fizzy
to invest
drinks.
in a decent one sometime.
Other fizzy drinks are available.
Depends what you are, doesn't it?
Yeah, but not Red Bull, please.
No thanks.
They don't deserve anything.
No. I don't want to go down to the Red Bull Arena to watch the Red Bull Whites. I really don't want that. Please.
I was all for that in Steve Evans' era.
Yeah.
I'm not going to libel them. There's already one big fight going on with Red Bull.
Yeah.
We have a pretty big disclaimer at the start of this show.
Yeah.
None of this is real.
Yeah. It seems as good a point as any. So if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. And how do they say it?
Really?
What do they say, these people?
Hey guys, it's your boy, the Roaring Peacock. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and today we're doing the Phil Here Challenge. We're not going to be that kind of channel, please, Danny.
It might work.
Put your abuse in the comments.
That's what they're there for.
Oh dear. Oh God.
I've got some Leeds 2020 stats if you want them.
Oh, go on then.
Go on.
So we played in total 37 games, almost a full Premier League season. We won 20 of those, drawn 5 and lost 12. So that's 65 points we gained in 2020. It's not bad. We scored 65 goals to go along with our 65 points. I like that. We conceded 44. We've only had one red card in the whole of 2020. Who can remember when that was?
Calvin Phillips.
Calvin at QPR. I was thinking the other night, I got distracted by something else, so I didn't bother checking, but I was thinking to myself, I don't think there's been a red card this season.
Yeah, right at the start of the year. We've done pretty well to get this far without another one. And then Bamford's got 16 and 37. Not bad. Pablo and Clicker both got 6. Dallas has got 5. And OG and Harrison have got 4 apiece.
OG was great for us last season.
Yeah.
Fantastic signing.
Big goals at the right time.
Yeah, Bessie even made a return last night as well.
So coming into the season then, we didn't really know where we would finish. I think most of us thought that we wouldn't get relegated. Probably most of us thought that we wouldn't get into the Champions League spots. But apart from that, I feel like we could have finished anywhere. How did you approach that Liverpool game, Phil? And how do you think we've gone so far?
Gone really well. I felt like it would the lots of chance were that Leeds would be lower mid-table, so kind of 11th to 15th, something like that. I did feel like they would stay up and stay up comfortably. I think the Liverpool game was a great example, certainly from the way we covered it, of the total change in pace. So from the massive tension of promotion and chasing that, we did a piece at Anfield speaking to various family members, so Cleek's parents and Hernandez's parents and Bamford's father and so on, just to get a sense of what it was like for them watching their kids going into the Premier League, some of them, for the first time. And it was just a bit of a celebration, that I think, celebration of promotion, a bit of a celebration of the way Bielsa plays, a bit of a robbery at the end, that penalty, which was I was going to say it was really soft. I don't mean it was soft in the fact that it was given. It was really soft in the way that it was conceded. It was a bit needless, that challenge from Rodrigo. But I think straight away, you just got the sense that if they were able to play like that consistently or regularly, then they were going to be fine, because they were going to give teams a proper good run, and they were going to compete strongly. And I think what we saw at Anfield has been a pretty fair reflection, actually, of what's come since at both ends of the field.
Yeah, scored 30, conceded 30. I'm pretty much sure we set our stall pretty early on what we're going to do this season.
It's Simon Grayson 2 Electric Boogaloo.
With our naive tactics. They seem to be working all right, I think.
I did want to ask you before I forget. So you obviously you broke your own curse by leaving the YEP.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And joining the Athletic. How is it with Graham now? Is it a bit weird? Is it a bit like an ex-lover that you might see on the street?
Do you know what? Not at all. I think both of us probably wondered how that would be, but we've always gotten absolutely great. I think the thing is, journalists in the main, football writers, understand each other pretty well, because it's a great job. And I mean, as people tell me constantly, including family members, it's not a real job, if you know what I mean. It's nothing that you would call consequential in any way, and never ever a matter of life and death, with very, very rare exceptions. But you do a hell of a lot of travelling, a lot of late finishes. But it's slightly different this season, obviously, because the games are all over the place. And I'm not going to a lot of the away games, because we only get one ticket, one press seat at the Athletic, so it tends to go to a home reporter. But you understand what it's like to get back from Chelsea at 3 a.m, and you know what it's like to go to Old Trafford to get smashed. And then, again, to crawl in the dark and feel like it's been a bit of a wasted day from the point of view of the football that you've seen. And, the hours are long, the job can be stressful, and there are a lot of strains. And I think more so on a local paper, the job that Graham's doing, there's a huge amount to get through constantly. He will file far more on a match day than I will, generally speaking, like last night, for example. So we've always gotten great. Never been any issue there at all. And as I say, I probably appreciate the strain of what he's having to do.
He's like that step that came in with the PS5 strap.
He's just lucky that he's just lucky that he's never had to traipse round Heston and Hereford with Leeds. But in his defence, he's done similar and worse with Chesterfield. So I can't throw any stones.
Yeah, he's paid his dues, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was a little bit worried about that change, because talk like change, like Phil. I want to read Phil's stuff, please.
You're all I know, Phil.
And, it's like, and who's this Graham guy with a weird surname? It's Smith, but it's not. But yeah, I think it's worked out really well. I think Graham's output's fantastic. I think you're right in as well on the Athletic. It's well worth a membership alone, Phil, because I think it's a different style. I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but it's a different style from what you'd write for the YEP.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and also you a bit more freedom to do what you want to do, and more flexibility to write at length. But I always say to people, there's a market for both. There's a market for what we do, but there's very much a market as well for day-to-day news and everything else, which has always been there, and I think will always be there in the future as well. I don't think that will change. And I mean, things change, people come and go, new faces come in, and you get used to the change very quickly. It's always the same.
Yeah. So while we're on the subject of media, let's bring in Karen then, because it was the year of the Karen, the Karen Carney rising. But it was the year of the Karen in general. And I guess everybody knows about that meme now. But for 3 years, Bielsa has been here, and there's been talk of Bielsa burnout. So it's a bit of a cliche at this point. It's been troped out over and over again by a bunch of media commentators who it feels like they... A bit like me at the start of at the top of the hour when I introduced you and called you magnanimous, so that I was fishing in my brain for a fancy word that might sound good, and these people they seem to have not done the analysis or the research in order to have an informed, interesting opinion, and they're just fished in their own brain for a football cliche around Bielsa and Leeds. So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's not about gender, is it, Phil?
No, it's definitely not, although you need to divvy this up into various areas of discussion. I like Karen Carney. I actually think she's a really good pundit. I can only really judge that on what I hear on Five Live, because that's generally where I do come across her commentary and her punditry. So we're talking about the comment last night that Leeds were promoted because of COVID, and I'm paraphrasing there. That wasn't the exact quote, but that was what was taken to mean, and that was obviously the quote that was used in one form or another by Leeds when they tweeted after the game. I wouldn't agree with that opinion at all. I don't think it's a particularly good opinion. I don't think it's particularly valid. It falls down first and foremost on the basis that the point where the season was suspended, Leeds were absolutely flying. They'd gone 5 wins on the bounce without conceding a goal. They didn't really look like they were going to concede. They didn't look like they were going to drop off at all. And bear in mind that even though they had the lockdown and there was the big break between games, Bielsa whipped them all the way through that. They trained probably harder than any other club, and I'd be surprised if there were clubs who trained as hard if Leeds were in any way below them in a physical sense. It was just all hours. I spoke to Ayling about it, and he said, if you got Sunday off at the end of the week, you were lucky, but he was on you with the weight targets and the fitness routines that you had to do, and he was desperate to get us back into Thorpe Arch. And once he did, it was like cracking the whip in the same way as before. So I don't think. It's possible that period, the period to refresh and I guess to refocus a bit, helped to make the form as good as it was in the last 9 games. But I tend to feel as if that form was coming anyway. And I still go back to the first season under Bielsa, where I don't think they burnt out physically. And I'm not even sure that they burnt out mentally. I just still feel as if they lost their nerve. I still feel as if at the point at which it was there to be done against Wigan in circumstances where it felt as if they couldn't lose, and then again against Derby in circumstances where it felt as if they couldn't lose, it all just fell apart. And I don't think that was fatigue. I do think it was tension, and I think it comes back to the fact that there has never been, or in the time I've covered Leeds, it's felt to me that there's never been a club with more pressure in the Championship, because Leeds are the club who have been away for so long, taken so many years to recover from relegation. They've made a mess of it so many times. They've never managed to get through the playoffs without getting beaten. So that seemed to me to be the most accurate narrative for season 1. And last season, I genuinely feel that in the position they were in, they would have finished it off. I think that's fair to say. So in terms of that opinion, I don't agree with it, and I don't think it was a good one, and I think it's fair to call it out. But the problem is, by doing what the club did with their tweet afterwards, it invited a bit of a pile-on, to say the least. And unfortunately, what with Twitter is that when you start a pile-on and it involves a woman like Karen, it's going to end up in sexist and misogynistic abuse, which is what happened, and not from everybody and not from most people, but there was plenty of that. And I think with hindsight, the club will regret the fact that they did it. I think it would make sense to delete the tweet and to accept that it didn't go as it should have done. I don't think that entitles anybody, me included, to have an opinion on the club that people aren't allowed to challenge, particularly if it's wrong. But I don't think anybody should think or feel that the way that played out last night was at all healthy, because it wasn't, and I did feel sorry for her.
Yeah,
I think that
Hasselbank just agreed completely with her, and no one seems to have said anything that Jimmy was doing.
They have, and they do, Ross. That's the thing. We are an objectionable bunch as Leeds fans. I think it's quite. You don't need to take magic mushrooms and have a big revelation to realise that. And we abuse male pundits regularly on a regular basis.
I think the devil's advocate is that when abuse to male pundits goes out, nobody says it's because you're a guy. It's because of that penis. Get back in the garage.
Nobody says get back in the kitchen, do they? When you get to that point,
that's true. But it's such a small percentage. No, it's such a tiny fraction. I mean, it's horrible. That's clear. I mean, it's obvious that misogyny or sexism is ridiculous. It's stupid. It's banal. It's out of touch with reality. But what I'm saying is, if we can't criticize pundits, and if the club can't stick up for itself in the face of completely disrespectful diatribe that has gone on and on and on for 3 years now, what can we do? What can they do to stick up for them? Why can't they stick up for themselves?
But here's the point. I think they said Leeds have obviously released a statement today, and they said themselves in it that they've got a lot of respect for Karen, and that they appreciate her work, and they didn't want this to happen. And I think in the case of her, she actually is a very good pundit who I suspect I'd like to know, and I don't know if we ever will, but what she's made of this and whether she feels that what she said last night wasn't what she meant to say. Did she mean it to come out like that? Did she have a more nuanced point that she was trying to make? In comparison, say, to a comment like that from Tim Sherwood, who was saying this lot have blown a gasket. They're supposed to be the fittest club in the league, which was, from my point of view, just a very, very lazy opinion and deserved to be challenged. But like our friend Riot Badger was saying, there is a difference, because with women on Twitter, they are prone to sexist and misogynistic abuse, and I do think that there was enough criticism of her on there anyway, and I feel that the club should have been able to look 2 steps ahead from where they were at the point where they tweeted, and to think about what was going to come on the back of that. There was obviously going to be criticism of her. There was obviously going to be criticism of what she said, and that's fine. That's the nature of the beast. But I think you then have to ask yourself, is it fair to let that lead into what is inevitably going to come, not because the club want it to be like that, but because that's how Twitter always seems to go? That would be my point of view on it.
I think for me, it's been tweeted with honest intent. I don't think it's been tweeted with any sort of sexism, like implied or anything like that. I think, like you said, they've not thought about what that kind of it kind of gives a gateway to people to start that misogynistic abuse. And I took on a lot of opinions last night from other people. My opinion is that it's fine for them to tweet that. In a perfect world where everything's equal and we've got equality, we've got equity, it's that nuance thing. I still think that they should have called it out, probably in a different way, probably not putting the video underneath it as well. It's all quite, it's difficult. I disagree with the whole thing of saying that we're now a sexist club. And somebody, a friend of the podcast, a Villa fan, said that we are now the footballing equivalent of Bernard Manning to the football world. I think that is slightly over the top.
I think if we can take 2 things away from it, would be the conversation around sexism and that it's wrong and that should be dismissed, those people with that opinion, and that maybe we should be asking for more thoroughly researched punditry. Okay, so let's move on a little bit now and just go to final thoughts. So final thoughts for the year. Phil?
No complaints with it at all. There was that wobble after Forest when I think we were all wondering and all a bit unsure about where it was going to go. But from that point onwards, I wouldn't say, it would be unfair to say it's been a cakewalk, because there's a lot of effort gone into it and a lot of top performances as well. But it's felt so comfortable and so natural, and you've never had the sense of it, even since promotion, of it kind of hanging by a thread or coming apart at the seams. If anything, they seem stronger now than they were 12 months ago, which is exactly what you want to do when you go up. And as I said, in what's been a pretty miserable year for people generally, for anybody round about Leeds United, it's been amazing.
Russ?
This last year it's given me some incredible highlights. Luke Ayling unleashing the hair and the slide and the air guitar. I mean, that volume was fantastic. His chicken dance at Hull, that was great as well. And just it's the other clubs that have not been able to keep up with us, which is great. Forest hunting us down, Brentford talking all that smack and trying to get into our heads, and it just didn't work. We just blocked it all out and just carried on being us. And it's what a great year to be a Leeds fan.
Alex?
Just echo all that, and just would like to be the first to say, any news, Phil?
I made it an hour.
I mean, you've never actually shagged anyone who's asked you to, have you?
Not yet. But there's always time. I think we were asking Bielsa about transfers last night, and interestingly, he went a bit further than he normally does by saying, "Look, if there's a good option out there, we should do it. Or if it's good for the club, then it would make sense." But I think if they go through a quiet window now in this one, they'll they'll be perfectly happy with that. And actually, I think given the position in the league and the points they've got, if there's no need to do anything rash. I think if they feel like it would be better to hold off till next summer, then they absolutely should.
Okay, so in the year that brought you locusts, bushfires, near nuclear war, and a global pandemic, Leeds United got promoted for the first time in 16 years. As all others lost their heads, we kept ours and got up in the end. So that was your 2020, and this is the Roaring Peacock podcast signing off for the last time this year. Have a wonderful, happy new year. So it's a very goodbye from me. My name's Adonis. You can catch me at the Adelites. And it's a very goodbye from Phil from The Athletic.
Goodbye.
A very goodbye from our man on the post, Mr. Rossbell.
Very goodbye. Catch me at Rossbell 1984.
And it's a very goodbye for the last time and a happy new year from our friend. Right.
Have I been sacked for the very last time? Hang on. Has my P45 been delivered to me?
I can't see you, Alex, I'm afraid.
For the last time this year.
Have a great one, guys. Please stay in your houses. Don't go and socialise with everybody. Don't put fireworks off because cats and dogs hate them, and I hate you for doing it.
Yep.
Have a good one. Bye.
Happy New Year! Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. You should probably give them a follow as they're more interesting than us. A very special thanks to Adam Warner, Barney Stewart Cookie, Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show, and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your mind. I should have said no, but I didn't think that you'd mind. It's just a bit of fun, a little bit of make-believe. I should have said no, but I couldn't ask you to leave.
Nobody said anything controversial yet, unfortunately.
No, I don't think anybody's mentioned kitchens. Or...
I tried to tease it out of you, Phil. I tried to get some juicy Victor gossip.
You did your best. You did your best.
You mentioned the Nazis, but that's a weekly thing. So we just leave that.